So I just start talking. Yeah. This is kind of the equivalent of creating a Minecraft YouTube channel with your mates. So how are we starting this? Are we just going to talk about the work that we're doing for our university piece's opinion, for example? Alright. Who wants to begin? Who wants to begin then?
Not me, given that you're just pointing at me. I'll give the quiet one the mic.
Go on.
Okay.
What are you doing? I don't think you've ever
sip.
told this.
Big sip.
I don't think you've... Yeah.
For what?
For the opinion pieces.
Opinion pieces.
Yeah. It's very difficult because Louis didn't have opinions before this task.
That is the running joke. My first piece, I think I'm going to be doing on the proposition to rename streets in Glasgow, which were named after historical slave owners.
Oh yeah, I remember. Yeah.
Generally, just making the point that that's not a great idea. Not from the slave owners are great, but from the complete opposite side.
Well, that's good.
Did you guys realise they're both due at the same time? Yeah.
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 Mine's are finished.
The opinion pieces are.
Yeah.
I thought you meant like the features.
No. Because I got a little.
I did realise.
I got a little shock when I read it. I was like, part one, and then
we have an essay. We have two essays later on. I hope they're easy.
All together.
The other thing is with the slave owners issue is that for example, Rabbie Burns apparently was involved in some way in the slave trade, but he was also a tremendous. What?
His family was. He wasn't. He was meant to be shipped off to Jamaica as a slave trader, but then decided to stay in Scotland as a poet instead.
He was also a tremendous poet, tremendous writer, and because of that, I think just because his family was involved in the slave trade, that doesn't mean we should just discard all recognition of how great he was.
Aristotle was a paedophile.
Yeah. Also a great thinker.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
But
I'd happily have an Aristotle street, regardless.
Yeah, but
even though pederasty is very bad. And I'm glad that the Christians stamped that out.
Did they though? Did they?
Hey,
are you sure?
The issues of the Catholic Church is child's play, so to speak, compared to what the Greeks were doing.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so at all. I think that's been going on for thousands of years.
Yeah, I'm just saying the Christian movement stamped it out for a time.
No.
Yeah.
Until it rekindled.
But again, even what's happening now is, like I said, nothing compared.
No, it is. I think it is. That's what I'm saying.
I mean, on the scale.
Is the part that has been happening for thousands of years.
But I'm talking about the scale. I'm talking about the scale.
On what? Would you compare?
Pederasty.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a running joke.
You think the scale of Catholic institutionalized pederasty is lower than that of ancient Greece?
Yeah.
You'd say so.
Yeah. It's at least in the Catholic Church, officially it's not seen as okay. Whereas, to my knowledge, it was in ancient Greece. I'm just saying it doesn't get enough credit for wiping out pederasty when it did.
I don't think it did. I think it drove it underground.
Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think that's what it did.
Point is, Burns was a really good poet.
Yeah. If you say so. I think that's all subjective, isn't it?
Thanks for that great comment.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Yeah, so your next one then?
My next one.
Yeah.
My next one's much more half formed right now, but I'm thinking about doing a piece on hipster culture.
Oh, what? Really?
Yes.
Ooh.
Why are you disappointed?
No, I'm curious what you think of it.
I'm going to be starting the general sort of main body of it will be about the sort of concrete cafe, but sort of the things that lead into that thing existing.
How do you define hipster culture then?
Oh, well, I more mean that sort of like middle class. A point I was thinking, like, and I only thought about the other day, is how all these places sort of sell health food in inverted commas, and it's interesting to me that you rarely have places like that where the food isn't displayed nicely, and that makes me think it's coming from, obviously it is, but that sort of embodies the fact it's coming from a slight sort of poser attitude that it's something photogenic. You can.
It makes good for your Instagram. It's a good Instagram portfolio. Turn up there, you buy a bit of status. Yeah. You take a picture of it, and then. Yeah.
It's just really lame.
What?
That.
Yeah, it's fucking
it's artificial.
Yeah.
It's the opposite to our local.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think that sort of started with like Wetherspoons.
No,
they were part of that for sure.
Wetherspoons is the opposite.
No, it's not. I don't think so. I think it's homogenizing every pub. It's taking the best.
But the hipsters aren't homogenizing.
The hipsters,
No, I know. But if you're saying it's what was the word you used earlier?
Lame.
No, after you said it's institutionalized or something, organized.
Did I say that? I didn't say that.
I'm sure you said something along those lines. Well, we have the recording.
Yeah, no, I don't think I did though.
Maybe I just heard it wrong, but it seemed like you were saying it was like an organized effort.
Maybe, I can't remember. What do you mean organized effort?
Because I think even though, like, if you say that hipster cafes and whatnot in places are somewhat different, they're still recognizable by distinct features, which makes them sort of striving for some sort of unity or a look or an aesthetic
through their disunity.
Yeah.
Or just their sort of removal. That's sort of what they seem to be aiming for. Just
taking away. Hey, we can be cool without stuff.
Bourgeois minimalism. To add one of those wanky words you're talking about.
Yeah.
What about you, Corey? What are your two?
I've finished mine. The first one is called Ironic Memes and the Cry for Values. And I take the case study of, the E-meme, where it's just for listeners, it's Lord Farquaad's body with YouTube personality Markiplier's face superimposed. About 100 different filters on top, so it's all kind of fuzzy, and then just the text E in the bottom portion of the picture. And I'm kind of looking at that and just relating it to the fact that we live in a society without much of an overarching set of values. What? Come on, Si. Throw it at me. What? Because you can see the beginning of it with Monty Python.
Yeah.
With their whole, like the UFO scene with Life of Brian.
Yeah.
It's almost like you can see it developing there.
Yeah.
And then you see it coming to its pinnacle with E.
I think it can go further, to be honest.
Maybe. At least right now, though, it's sort of... It's so in your face. Because Life of Brian, it was just a portion of the film where he's abducted by aliens and nothing comes of it. But... because that wasn't the sole point of the humour, whereas now that is. And I don't know, it's kind of like the rootlessness of society and not knowing where to go.
So you're exploring the problem, or
you're crying for meaning through expressing the lack of meaning. You're crying for meaning.
Yeah. Okay. So what do you say? Do you think that's because there's no?
He says this because there's no God.
I didn't say that. I said there's no underlying values.
Do you not think it's more there's a lack of perspective for the future? There's no clear vision for something to strive
that's
towards.
Also to do with values, because to strive for something means to have the value.
Yes, but
so
we have values. Agreeing. It's not like...
It's up in the air. What I mean is the sort of turmoil in society. I mean, if you were to go back to Victorian England, for example, to take an argument in extremis, you see the strict Christian ethics. Whereas you compare it to today, what?
Keep going.
And you compare it to today, and it's far more all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that... I'm not saying that's the reason, I'm saying it's a reason.
But something everyone can agree on is...
I think you're just describing the consequence of something.
Yeah.
Rather than...
That's what I'm doing.
Yeah. So what's the conclusion?
Well, have you changed it? Because originally he was...
Well, I'm concluding that it's a symptom of a greater disease of society not knowing where to go.
Mm-hmm.
I'm basically just saying that we need to try and work it out. Either... Basically...
The solution he offers is a return to God and church.
Right.
That's what you offer.
Maybe.
Isn't it?
But I
But
don't know
if
if
you
we
change your
can.
mind
I don't.
on
Well,
that.
the problem is that we've already kind of destroyed Christianity in the West. So I don't know if we can. But maybe we can, and that would be a solution, but not necessarily the only one.
Okay.
But yeah, it's more just looking at the cause of it. So, and then my other one is called the High Tory and the Solution to the Polarized Society, and it's just looking at the sort of reactions from the left and the right to the sort of dying centrist neoliberal establishment. And you've got the momentum sort of lefty and the High Tory, which is sort of a sort of God, Queen and Country type worldview. And they're both looking to the past for going the way forward, kind of in a similar way to searching for values. What with the High Tory more obviously looking to tradition, but the Momentum Socialists making sort of Comrade Corbyn memes. And then they're both reacting to this sort of aura of chaos, trying to make their field the new centrism. But what will likely happen is that they'll sort of converge, make their own little new centrist establishment for their kids to rebel against, and then the cycle repeats. That's my two pieces.
So you describing what's happening in one of them, or in the last one, or are you just?
It's describing, and then the last part is making a prediction. But that's not the focus. That's just a sort of ending.
What about the alt-right, you say?
Yeah, the High Tories, the socially conservative religious types, have taken to calling themselves the alt-righteous, which I quite appreciate.
What about you?
Well, one piece that I've just finished is about the riots in Chemnitz. In fact, there were riots this Sunday. I don't know if you heard about that. Huh?
By whom?
Right-wing radicals. About 9,000 of them showed up and started demolishing places. But it's an interesting one for me because I was quite surprised by the variety of coverage that it received and the way it expressed itself. A lot of it definitely had a stance. Like I said, every report I saw was trying to pull your heartstrings in some direction, whether it was, here's this poor guy who lives in Chemnitz who has nothing to do with the riots, who just blah, 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 is affected by it somehow. But then there's also some sort of new anti-media movement on the go, which I hadn't really taken note of before. Which, it's actually quite fascinating, the case that they make. They say that there's some powerful elites that spin a narrative that is designed to cause some sort of civil confrontation amongst the people that live.
What groups of people in specific?
Every group of people.
But in the examples you saw, what?
In this case, this gentleman, I'll reference him properly in the article. But this gentleman was making the case that the elites in the Bundestag were making a narrative that was, like I said, designed to cause clashes between the native population and the
Migrants.
Yes.
Has Chemnitz received a lot of migrants? Is it sort of all over Germany or disproportionate?
It has, but I think the main issue why people are starting to rise up, if you will, is because there's a big increase in criminality, even though it's not documented that criminality is linked to people coming into the country. Because I think for every 10 rapes or something, 3 of them are committed by immigrants.
It's quite a lot.
Yeah, but it's not higher than anywhere else, really. 7 of those dudes are still Germans, so it's not really a higher number than it has ever been, or anything
so is
like that.
that proportional? Would that be
Sort
higher
of,
than?
Yeah, I know it seems like
I'm just asking. I don't know what's
but
going
it
on
is
in
a
Germany.
weird way of rounding up numbers, I suppose, especially when you consider the context.
Right.
But
Okay.
yeah, so what I want to look at specifically is sort of how does the the sort of guilt complex that we have and influence the way that this conversation is being shaped, and to what extent can it impact that negatively.
So do you see these riots as the guilt complex running its course, and that they're...
No, I see them as a reaction to something tangible. That being said, though, I think any reaction that is emotive, purely emotive, is always bad.
Okay.
Because it's not informed, it's uninformed. It's like I was saying, there's these piles of narratives. It's essentially what you're describing with your meme essay or thing. So you get these piles of narratives, these that worm themselves into everything, and they all contradict each other. Everybody's confused. Nobody knows what's actually going on. Reality and what you see on TV are becoming crasser contrasts by the minute, and then in that whole miasma of the 10-hour memory span, it just, everything gets swallowed up and sort of becomes this half fiction. And I think that's what people are struggling with everywhere, in the West anyways. It's a problem of abundance. I think there's no problem to focus on, that you focus on that you make them up effectively. But yeah, that's the interest. That's what I find interesting about this whole thing. Is that there's so many. It tells us so much about ourselves and how we look at ourselves.
Is that mainly what you're speaking about in there?
Kind of, yes. I want to look at like where it comes from and why it is the way it is, and what can you do? Because I think, in essence, Germany has really two options. This is the test, really, right? If Germany has learned its lessons, right? Because you can say the next generation was still in shock and awe because of the Cold War, because of their parents and the documented history of their parents, really. The fact that all of what the Nazis did is on film, pretty much. And that was still, like 40 years before, back then. So the disconnect wasn't there. But now it is there. Like, the generation that partook in the war is starting to die off really quickly. So you're getting this cognitive dissonance. You're having this imposed guilt for something that you haven't done, that is sitting and gnawing at people. I think that's in part one of the reasons why the whole white privilege movement, or white pride, or what was it called, white guilt thing.
White pride sounds like something entirely
it is different. Yeah. But you know, the whole white guilt thing has been pushed back so much because nobody's really a fan of the idea of original sin, and you don't like being told that this is you. And I think in part that's what we're seeing there, and we've got a great opportunity to actually make it work and provide or create a bridge between.
Make what work?
Well, having these many people in our country, because most of them are educated and well-educated intellectual figures that can, easily integrate themselves into a German system. I think if everybody plays their cards right and keeps a cool head, we can actually create a bridge between East and West rather than make this the decisive.
So I remember us actually having a conversation about this last year, where we were talking about sort of the migrant crisis, and you were talking about the conflict between East and West, and you see it as fusion instead of the continuing conflict.
It's not that I see it, it's signs pointing towards both.
Yes.
Either
and you think we're at
collapse.
A crossroads, perhaps?
Yes. I think, and here's the thing, I think if Western society, civilization or whatever, decides to stray from its current path, it will collapse and go into recession.
Okay.
Because it's starting to, as you say, values are starting to be ground down into powder. And nothing seems to stick anymore. We're going into a phase where we're trying to figure out what we are.
Yes, exactly. That's the point I'm making.
And I think in part, if you look at the way Germany runs itself right now, the only thing that's actually knows what it is the economy.
So when you say Western civilization, whatever, goes into recession, you mean culturally or
Every
socially?
way, both ways, everything.
Okay.
I think America is this close away. Sorry, is very, very, very close to either splitting up or reacting rather immaturely to this division.
I was wondering if I could hear your thoughts on it, because you were saying you disagreed with my observation that it's, you know, the idea of taking God out of society. Can you tell me your thoughts on perhaps how you would deal with this situation, or how you think
with the migrant crisis, or
just
with
the sort
divide
of
in general?
Yeah, the divide, the breakdown of societal norms. Have you got
postmodern conditions?
Yeah, postmodernity.
Do you mean sort of just? Sorry.
How do you? What do you? What in the absence of anything, any definitive values? What do you see the best way forward for individuals that are trying to ground their existence in reality?
Because are you guys? Do you guys believe that up until very recently, because of religion, that wasn't an issue?
I think it's
No,
been a steady decline for hundreds of
Been
years.
an issue. I would have thought that would always.
No,
grasped
it's always been an issue, but there was always something to seek refuge in. Now
Yeah.
Now
that's
we've completely
gone.
lost that. Yeah.
It's not that it's been like religion is now dead. It's been a decline for what, 200
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
It's that what has replaced religion isn't really
It's
a meaning. It doesn't
shallow.
contain meaning. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I've made that point in my piece that through deconstructing it, we failed to put anything in its place.
Well, yeah. This
The
is
push for individual meaning, I guess.
How
do you think that works? Because we've never really been able to do that before.
We've never had the
We've never
means to.
tried.
Do you think we have the
I think
means?
right now, because we've spent so much time trying to destroy meaning in a way, and maybe unintentionally, but that is inevitably what we've done. We'd need to entirely rethink the way.
Have we really destroyed meaning though, or have we just replaced it with a bizarre
nothing.
meaning that we just don't understand yet?
Probably a bit of both, in a way, because we're straying into
Because
new
we're trying
territory
to,
we don't understand.
we're assuming that we're somehow in charge of it. We're not really, are we?
What I'm saying, there will be an element of that by nature of being in a territory we don't understand. But to take an example, the sort of corporate Marvel worship, at least, is a sort of symptom of actually stripping meaning.
I don't
Are
know.
we going to get into that conversation again?
I really
if you
don't
want.
I think we need to have Duncan on for that.
Maybe, but
I don't agree with Jordan Peterson on that. I can't.
He's not me. He doesn't.
He
make that
does.
point.
Yeah. He
No,
does.
he says it's a replacement. I'm saying it's
No,
the
he's
lack
saying
of.
it is the consequence of the lack of meaning. That's
Right.
exactly his point.
But he's saying that it's building a new pantheon. I'm not saying that.
No, he's saying it's trying to reform at the ground
Well, I haven't
level.
heard that. If maybe
That is his
maybe
original
it is.
argument. But go on.
No, I'm just making the point that it's that the Soylent Grin cuck face. When they're taking the photos and they're smiling, and in the eyes you just see hollow beads.
Mm-hmm.
The what?
Have you never seen that? The
Soylent Green.
Yeah, the cuck face. When these sort of ultra nerds are taking selfies, they'll do like the wide face grin.
Oh, yeah.
I can remember a description just saying like if you look into their eyes, you just see hollowness.
The smile doesn't quite reach the.
Yeah.
Well, what was the relation?
And sure, I mean, in a way, I would agree with you that, or Peterson, that it's sort of trying to replace it, but I don't think it does it effectively. I think it's almost trying to push it away and ignore that it's a thing.
It's trying to secularize it.
Yeah.
If anything, if it is trying that, I don't think it's trying that. I think it is a consequence of that. But at the same time, I think real religion has played its part.
In the
Western
deconstruction of itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Plus, I mean, once you've reduced it to that, look at what has happened to American religion. You just need to watch the 100 million
evangelical
Yeah.
preaching. Yeah.
But that's like what you're stripping every spiritual element from
Yeah.
it, and you're just presenting it as a capitalist venture almost,
I agree.
where it becomes sort of you're purchasing salvation. It's essentially what it's tried to reform against.
But there's also, was it the Jacobins in France? There's an element of it's not just religion's fault, it's also the people who thought that we didn't need any form of spirituality or...
Yeah,
need
sure,
for
I
ethics as
agree
well.
with that, but I think that, funnily enough, a sort of secular Buddhism has made its way into...
What do you
Gonna
mean
bring
by
up Buddhism?
What do you mean by secular Buddhism?
Well, a sort of tolerance and acceptance movement, and a sort of
I think also I was going to say like it sort of presents the opposite of deconstructionism in a way, just satisfaction. Just
I think
it.
I agree with this is probably one of the problems that in my own arguments, I suppose, is that just deconstructing doesn't make anything better.
No.
Yeah, sometimes.
It does the opposite for the most part.
It just does the opposite.
And the problem is
really.
that really, if you're going to have a belief system, there's some parts you just need to accept.
I don't agree with that.
Hence, them
necessarily.
being
Is it-
belief rather than.
Yeah, sure, but I don't think you need a belief system.
Neither.
I think you don't need a belief system. I think you can pretty much generate that on your own if you're wise enough. But I don't think everybody in society is wise enough.
But even then, your ethics are still passed down to you through
Yeah.
some form of another. So you're not generating it yourself.
No, but
It
you-
still
you
comes
pick-
from systems
you pick.
previous.
you pick the bits you take.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. But what I mean is that that's still a belief system. At least you've inherited one or two.
Yeah,
or
but
three.
it's not attached to a belief necessarily. You can generate a list of maxims or core values, let's say, based on the philosophies of many 19th, 18th century thinkers without ever evoking any higher power.
You can.
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean by higher power, though, without evoking it? Because it. I mean, there's interpretations of religion that wouldn't necessarily mean a higher
Yeah, but
power.
no.
Where I'm not sure what point you're getting.
No, but you don't have to frame it in a religious or spiritual manner in order for it to work.
Right, but that's
You
just a matter
shouldn't-
of language.
No, it's not. It's not. If
Why?
you're treating a human based on the fact that they're like you, that's not based on language. That's based
No,
on...
what I'm saying is you're saying about religion. I mean,
Yeah.
I've spoken to a priest before that doesn't actually like the word God
Uh-huh,
because of the sort of imagery it evokes.
right.
Call it being in line with the universe. Call it
With that, then it becomes an irrelevant thing. That's
Why?
Because that's what science did.
because that's not action.
No, but science demonstrated that the cause is irrelevant. It's the effect
Right,
that is relevant.
right. But the idea of God being that there is, even you could say a higher power or something, or like an ideal
Uh-huh.
that, let's say, spawns the universe, and because of that you act in accordance within the universe to try and produce
What do you mean by an ideal that spawns the universe?
what? Like, well,
Just, I was following you when you were saying God is an ideal, but the idea that created the universe seems
So, like-
more like belief in a higher
no,
power
not
than
literally, but as in
that's what I meant.
metaphorically in a way.
How does that work?
Yeah.
So the idea of, if you're trying to picture the universe as a sort of as you in a way to act, you have God as in at the top
So you
to
don't
represent
actually-
what you're striving for, and it's natural that metaphorically he would spawn the universe because you're trying to reach that. You're trying to be in harmony with that. If you take like God's path or whatever as the correct moral path, right?
That seems a bit.
Yeah,
abstract.
but again, that's an
Well,
accumulation
God is
of
abstract.
history.
no, but like more so than the idea that you're.
But if you believe that, then you also believe that God as an ideal is the accumulation of many histories.
Yes.
So therefore, you don't need to ground it in a summary of all those histories. You can pick the histories yourself that you find.
You might
most,
not need to, but you can.
I'd also say,
but a organized religious framework requires you to do that.
But that's just our way. You
Oh,
can
really? Show me one way where that's not
in what?
in religious.
Well, I thought we weren't
culture.
talking about just religion. I thought
Well,
we
I
were
also-
talking about values in general.
Yeah, no.
Your
no,
idea
no.
that the ideal you're reaching for in God
Uh-huh.
is universal, it seems flawed to me, because I think the ideal is very human. I don't think it's very.
Well,
I think the ideal that you're reaching for doesn't share many traits with a lot. Of
well,
the rest
that's
of nature.
why Christians believe in Christ, the sort of human way of doing that.
What do you mean?
So, like with Christ being the embodiment of God,
Mm.
it would be the human way to achieve that. That's why Mary, a human, birthed Christ. 'Cause
Yeah, and yet today, if you find someone that was hanging around with hookers and giving them advice, that would be the last thing you would look for the descendant of God.
I still don't quite.
But that's more of that's poetic storytelling. That's
True,
not
true.
It's not
But
literally.
how do you make that accessible to a 21st century individual?
What would you say has changed?
Well,
So
a
that
lot,
if we were-
everything.
No, but I'm not challenging you. I'm just,
No, I'm
like,
just
discussing,
saying,
like,
everything
what-
has changed.
because I don't exactly see how the story itself isn't applicable.
No, the essence of the story is applicable.
Uh-huh.
The moral, the intention, even.
Uh-huh.
Let's say, but the actual, it's like putting a brand new Mercedes engine into a car from the 1930s. It's not going to work unless you've reworked the entire car.
But that's my point. Is that what specifics about the story, for example?
No,
do you not-
don't. It's
or
nothing
whatever,
to do.
what's-
It's the fact that it's set in fucking ancient Judea for one.
But that wasn't a problem in the 1800s. Why is it a problem
What
now?
it was. That's why it died in the 1800s.
Well, then the 1500s. It didn't die then.
Yeah, but that's closer. People were still fighting with swords and lances and all sorts of different things. Now we're talking about completely augmenting our reality to the point where it becomes indistinguishable from what we perceive with our senses. There's a huge leap of differences. In the last 40 years, humanity has conquered over so many new domains that were seemingly fantastical just 100 years prior.
Right, but if the essence of the story is still applicable,
Yes.
then you can still apply it.
No.
It doesn't-
Because you're alienated from the origin. You need to in order to have an underlying ethic, you have to understand where it comes from, how you got there, and what it means.
I'm confused though as to how you're saying that it's not applicable though.
Well, it's because you can't. There's no way a modern individual can insert themselves into the mindset of a first century Judeo-Arab
Well, I think
scholar.
that's what makes it so successful, is that it's so basic.
Well, how is it successful if we're talking about its death?
Well, by the nature of it spreading so far.
Yeah,
and it's
yeah,
death in
sure,
the West,
sure.
sure, but South America, Asia, Africa, etc.
That's not relevant to us, though, is it?
Well, my point is that they're still existing within the 21st century, so
yeah,
maybe it's
I'm not
maybe
disputing that they're not.
but
But
maybe
so is
it's not-
Islam,
but
and you're
ma-
vehemently
but-
opposed to that.
maybe it's not a problem with the time period, but societal, because you're saying it's to do with partially with the fact that they had swords and such.
I'm saying that's a part of it. Yeah, sure.
But I'm saying that
But
maybe
there's also
that's not.
no clear vision for the future in the West currently.
But that's because we've abandoned.
No.
No,
That's or one of the reasons why.
No.
Because one of the
What
symptoms due to
what possible hypothetical positive outcome could religion predict or inspire us to do?
well, giving us that set of values that we've lost.
Uh-huh.
That has
But that's
caused,
also-
that
no,
has
no,
ca- that,
no,
that,
no,
that
no.
has caused this not knowing what to do.
I don't think so.
You
How has it caused that? You need to explain that before.
Well, by the nature of the fact that we based our society in those grounding values.
Did we though?
Yes.
Completely?
I don't know if you could how you'd measure that, but sure.
Well, that's exactly the point then, isn't it? How do you measure that?
But
How
that's
can
no.
someone
But
get away with saying that you do base everything on it? and then without providing.
We clearly
statute.
based our society in Christian morality.
Yeah,
By
sure.
the nature, but that's my point. But then you're
Sure.
saying, but how much? And
Yeah.
then what? 88%.
But that's how you need to.
But we're still suffering from its loss, regardless. So that's almost irrelevant, or at least not the point.
It's not really, because you're framing it in that way. You're framing it in this religious, pseudo-religious.
I'm not saying the
narrative.
death of religion is the reason. I'm saying it's our reason.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
But that seems to be the only thing you focus on.
Well, that's what I'm looking into, but
Yeah.
I can't look into all at the same time. That's
No,
what I'm
I'm
looking
not
into
saying
right
you
now.
are, but it seems like you're neglecting some of the other causes that might have
But that's
contributed
only
to
because
that.
I'm trying to look into this right now because it's the part I know least. I grew up in an atheist background.
Right. But I don't think that the entirety of values coming down to a crash is solely, or
No.
even not even necessarily to a high degree responsible or caused by.
Well, I haven't
death of
studied enough to
religion.
know if it's to a high.
There's
It seems to
plenty
me
more. There's plenty
yes,
more.
there's
let's
a lot
say.
of factors, but it's still significant, and it's one of the
Significant,
reasons,
sure.
and it's still something we should be taking note of.
Yeah,
Instead
sure.
of, right.
But the answer to that isn't, hey, let's just redo the old shit.
I'm not saying we should.
You do.
I'm not.
Well, didn't you say that we need to go back to Christianity?
No, I said that was a possibility.
No.
It's a
How is that a possibility?
Well, we don't know what will happen, what we could do. I'm saying it's an option.
If you're saying it's a possibility, you're
Saying you think
describing
it's
it as a potential reality.
Yeah, I'm saying we
So you're
could
saying
do
that is what we could do, rather
We
than that's
could.
what we should do.
I wasn't saying that's what we should do. I'm saying that's
What
what
should we do then?
I don't know. That's what I'm trying to work out.
Okay.
I'm saying that's a possibility, and that's why I'm looking
I
into.
don't know if it's a possibility though. I don't see
Well,
it. As
none of us do.
but do you really foresee a general swing back to Christianity?
Maybe I don't know. It's unlikely, but it's possible.
Well, if it's unlikely, how is it a possibility then?
Because it's still likely, even though it's not
Yeah,
as
but-
likely as
but-
likely.
But then there must be so many other possibilities.
Right? That's why
But
I'm
you're
saying
not
it's an
covering-
option. Because I
But
can't
if it's-
cover it all. That's
But
why I'm
you're
looking
saying
into one.
it's a minuscule possibility.
I'm not saying it's minuscule. I'm
But-
saying it's not.
likely,
Yeah, but it's still possible.
but that
It
makes
it still could be desirable,
why
even
is
if
it
it's not
that
likely.
much more important than all the other ones?
Because maybe it's one of the correct decisions that would produce a desirable outcome. We don't know. And that's why I'm looking into it, and that's why it's a possibility. There you go.
Okay,
Yeah?
okay.
Louis?
Well, I don't really have much to add on what was just said. I still feel when you were trying to describe what God was
Mm-hmm.
to you.
Well,
so
I'm
you
not
still
trying to
haven't really
define
had-
God. That's folly. That's
But
hubristic.
what? Just your it was just the description you were trying to give ages ago.
Uh-huh.
Still doesn't quite seem to make sense to me.
Right.
Your answer about Jesus. I know that was again. I'm backtracking, but
Mm-hmm.
it didn't answer what I was asking.
So, if anything, I remember Peter Hitchens was saying that he defined it as he defined it as as the difference between looking at the universe as ordered with purpose or chaotic. So you could look at it that way, God being the ideal of an ordered way of trying to act. You could look at it literally, metaphorically. I'm not saying there's one way to look at God. I'm just saying that's our way. It's Yahweh.
It's more. I think the order you're describing is much more human
Yeah.
than it is.
I'm not saying that our
natural.
conception of God isn't perhaps partially a
But I
human
don't think it's
construction.
universal at all. I think the universe is very chaotic, really.
But I don't think that necessarily trying to sort of understand or act in accordance with God would be universal by the nature of it existing within the universe. It allows specifics.
What?
That was a
You know,
complete.
Yeah,
that was
just
speak again.
yeah.
Well, what?
That made no sense.
That was.
Well, by the nature... What?
Just try-
No, let
say
him
again,
try.
say it
Yeah,
again.
yeah.
What? No, I'm
I
confused
just
with what
try
you're
to
saying.
understand what you're
We're
saying.
the ones confused.
Yeah.
I don't know what you're trying to say.
So, I don't see why your love of, for example, of Confucianism, where you just leave,
Listen.
Where you
stop. I have no love for Confucianism.
where you just leave the sort of contradictions be,
Yes.
is necessarily in contradiction with an interpretation.
By
of
definition,
God.
it wouldn't be.
By definition, it would or wouldn't.
It
Wouldn't
wouldn't be.
It wouldn't be in contradiction.
Yeah,
right.
Except contradiction. That's fine. I get the basis.
But that's
of
the
your,
point.
But
with
I
Louis,
get the
right?
basis.
No,
Listen,
universalism.
I get the basis of your argument. I get it. I understand it. But
No,
I
I'm
don't
answering
think
Louis'.
it's correct.
Well, I'm answering with Louis' point of it being universal. I'm saying it doesn't necessarily need to be.
But, you were saying
But that's
it was,
why
is what I was saying.
in Christian literature they describe Christ as the human way to God, not the only way. If there was aliens landed tomorrow, it could be very possible that Christianity would not apply to them whatsoever.
You're saying Jesus is rather than being the personification of God.
It's the human personification. Maybe. I think so. I mean,
of an ideal.
yeah.
That makes more sense to me, but still doesn't.
He's saying that, in essence, the depiction of Jesus is the ideal way for human to be.
Or at least striving to be that, right?
But then what's God?
God is the summary of all those ideals. Of how to be.
Beyond humans or just for humans? Because then
the argument goes that he goes beyond, transcends humans' past, current, and future experiences. In the sense that it's a floating cloud of ideas, if you want, of how to be proper. That's the argument.
And that's the ordering of the universe, you know?
But as soon as you start bringing the universe into it, it loses it for me.
Why?
I think in this context he means universe as in your immediate surrounding.
Yeah.
Your universe.
Not literally.
Yeah.
Right. That's
Yeah.
probably where we're. Because if you mean literally, I think.
Because you can't.
The
As
world,
an
your
individual,
time.
you're completely alienated from the universe as a thing.
Which is again the concept
in
of
this
Christ
sense,
being
I think
the
what
human
he's
way.
trying to argue is that the universe is this. This is his universe right now. If that makes sense.
Which is why we don't just have God. It's why, well, or at least Christians. I'm not baptized. It's why Christians have Christ, because it's their path. So sure, you could have God as everything or whatever, but Christ would be the localization.
Yeah,
Start
see,
totally.
I don't agree with that. I'm afraid.
What do you-
I understand the argument. I really do, and it's took me a long time to really think about it. But I think the West also has a tradition of fierce individualism
Mm-hmm.
that's unique to its.
Do you see that as
Culture.
in contradiction with God?
No, I see that the way Christianity manifested itself is a celebration of the individual as opposed to any ideal.
Yeah.
So, in that sense, it's surpassed that.
Wait, you say the individual as opposed to any ideal?
Yes. The sovereignty of the individual is more
Right.
sacred than the individual itself.
I'm not sure what you mean by that.
Well,
Could you
think of it better.
explain?
Yeah. Let's say it's your acts and your deeds that determine what you are rather than who you are when you are it.
Okay.
You wanted to go into metaphysics.
Yeah. Like I said, I've not studied much
Does
Do
that
you want
make
to
metaphysics.
have
sense?
a debate about men?
Does that
Oh,
make
that
sense?
yeah, the Canadian one.
It's more the after the echo that you leave that is important than the
And-
noise you make to create the echo. Does that make sense? Maybe a bit more. That's what it seems like.
And
A
how are
lot
you
of it-
relating that to Christendom and individualism?
Because that is, in essence, or to me, that is the essence of Christendom and Western.
That it's the fact that it's individual,
Achievement.
not what they're doing.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is the individual and their deeds after they have done them that is important, rather than the moment in which they decide to do them.
Okay. And you draw issue with that?
Well, I think it's yes, I do. First of all, yeah, I think there's more to it than just naked individualism. I think it stems from a society of food surpluses and
Well, yeah, you're talking about the sort
and
of difference.
coldness. Really, actually,
You're just talking about the difference between the sort of the individual doing it in the moment versus what they have done. But doesn't that contradict the idea of salvation with? You know, a critique of Christianity is believing that even if you've murdered 100 people, if you're suddenly sorry for it, then you're okay. Is that not in contradiction with
But
that,
I
perhaps?
think I think that was added on later. It's the salvation through acceptance.
Excuse the atrocities done.
Yeah. It was a way to clear your name, really. To preserve only
because
what is
Christianity
good
was
if you want.
predicated on people abandoning their old faiths to accept this, so that salvation
I don't
is...
know, was it?
Well, it
If
had
you look
to
at
have
early
been,
church history, it wasn't.
because by the nature of there being no Christians. And
No,
they
no,
weren't-
no. There were loads of Christians. There were loads of
No,
different
but-
sects and.
But that's what I mean. They
ideas.
had to have accepted it through accepting Christianity, which would be the idea of currently accepting Christendom.
Yeah.
They were pagans before they accepted Christ.
Yeah, but remember where it grew and where it is now.
But you get what I'm saying.
I'm talking about how it festered in the West.
I'm saying it
And-
needed.
In Roman Judea,
Uh-huh.
it would have been much more closely married to Judaism.
Right. Well, what I'm saying is when Paul changed many aspects of the religion, for example, circumcision, it was so that people would accept Christianity. By the nature of there being a focus on people needing to accept Christianity because of how small the religion was, it's putting an emphasis on salvation and therefore the
Is
current
it?
moment.
Or is it just on placing an emphasis on conversion? I think it's conversion.
Maybe.
I think it's again an individualistic. You don't share my point of view, so I'm going to force it.
Like I said, I'm not. Just to make one thing clear, I'm not baptized. I'm not an official Christian, so I'm not.
No, look, and I'm not trying
I'm
to
just
bash
exploring the
anybody.
idea.
Yeah, I'm not trying to. I just don't. I don't find the argument compelling. It made me think for a long time. Ever since I watched those Peterson lectures, it made me think about it a lot, and I'm quite thankful for him for that. But I don't find myself in agreement with him. I think he's looking at it through a very fresh and almost post-colonial lens, whereas they grew up with that was literally their first point of contact with spirituality was Christianity, whereas we have a long history of all sorts of
Who's
religions.
we and they? Just so I can make this.
Western
Okay, so us
European
now being
countries, let's say.
being in a sort of multicultural
Let's-
or being in proximity.
Let's just talk about Europe. Let's just talk about Europe. Let's just say the 5 biggest countries in Europe. If every single one of those countries has a rich history and in its own unique cults and
But
religious
England,
movements.
for example, has only ever existed as a Christian country.
No.
The formation.
Oh, right. Okay. On
yeah.
the map, maybe.
As
but-
in by Alfred
But
when they
Albion
united England.
existed before that, and all sorts of different confederations existed
But
amongst the Celts.
what I mean by that is that I'm assuming you're meaning Peterson as in like the Canadians, the sort of North Americans with their.
Yes.
So effectively, the English have had more of a history with Christianity than the Canadians because of how.
Yeah.
Because
yes, sure,
neo-paganism
sure,
isn't really.
But the difference there is that England still has a memory, literally etched on its country, of a time before that.
Okay, so we have.
You have Stonehenge, you have Glastonbury, you have all.
I see you're referencing sort of neo-paganism perhaps as other options.
No, definitely.
Or at least the sort of not being a mono-religion.
Yes, I think
Okay.
I don't think that's an option. I think, in general, that's what we're doing anyways. When we're elevating these, even the Frost-Nixon thing, right? Let's take that as an example that we watched today. We
Right.
watched the interview. That there's a reason why that is encoded and will be passed down, because there's a lesson in there. It's a lot of lessons in there, and there's a reason why we listen to Cicero, right? Or Thomas More, because they were real people, real politicians who did real things, and I think those lessons will be much more acute and according with the times that we are in now than anything that the Bible has ever produced.
But what they are saying is also... I'm not saying that the
Yes, but the Bible relies on ambiguity and mystery to a certain extent. And I think that time is over. As much as I detest it, I think it can exist in a fictional realm, but only in a strictly fictional
Could
realm.
you say that perhaps one of the solutions out of Louis doing the sort of-
Condescending smile.
because I said perhaps. Could you say that one of the solutions out of this sort of fork in the road that we're in is just an acceptance of more mysticism, and then that could lead...
I don't think you can just accept more mysticism.
It would be a gradual process, but do you think that could maybe lead to a belief system somewhere?
I think in order for
in the
that
line.
to happen, a big chunk of civilization has to die.
Scientism.
Anything, just one strata of society has to collapse.
But what I mean is...
Which would you want to go?
Military.
Why?
Out of all of them.
Wait, sorry, did you say want to go or think would have to go?
Want to go.
Okay.
Would you not fucking pick the military?
Not really, but I come from a family of...
I mean, if
So did I.
every fucking society lost their military, I don't think that would be them.
No, because the military is quite important even to safeguarding society from itself. Emergency and such. Anyway,
Let's say the judiciary then.
But what I was saying...
Let's say the judiciary collapses. All laws lose their meaning. Everything's turned on its head. Words no longer mean anything. Anything can be disputed and argued. Because the
Like
meaning...
a worldwide Wild West.
Yeah. Like the meaning of the words themselves has just
www.
disappeared.
This is getting a bit abstract for me, but...
But that's literally what would have to happen in order for it. We would
In
have
that, I'm
to
not entirely
lose,
sure what you're meaning.
We would have to... Well, okay, then let me put it like this. In order to regain mystery, we'd have to lose something. We'd have
Okay.
to lose clarity in some form. It just doesn't... You can't just flick it back on.
No,
Especially
but-
now that everybody's connecting with each other and everybody can actually see what it looks like in India right now or wherever.
When you said things banning, I thought you meant specific movements. And to make one thing clear, when I said scientism, I didn't mean the belief in science. I mean the belief that science can replace philosophy. And
I don't think
other
that
issues.
anybody believes that, really.
A lot of... Do you
I
not feel
think-
that a lot of the new atheists... A lot of the new
Yeah,
atheist
but
movement
that
was...
movement's gone.
Yes,
That
but it's,
movement's gone.
what I'm saying is it's that as recent as that, it's still not dead. Scientism.
I think there are certain ideas born out of it that are, again, repackaged old ideas. Like veganism, that's not that old. Say what you want. Environmentalism isn't old.
Well-
Isn't new, sorry.
Were you saying veganism isn't older? Is it?
It isn't new,
Alright,
sorry.
okay. Yeah, Jainism.
Yeah, I mean that's... You can trace that back for however long you want to, really. But I don't think these ideas wouldn't have come around if there wasn't a religious body to keep them in check. Mind you, there were plenty of religious uprisings during the reign of the popes.
What kind?
Every
You're
kind.
No, but what are you referring to?
Cathars, Albigensians, all sorts of people. You know?
Yeah.
Reformation. It's just the biggest one. The Hussites. Anyone.
Now that the Hussites were some rebellion. That
Yeah.
was-
But, you know, and it's if anything, you just keep reforming. That's all you can
Mhm.
do.
But
And
to bring it back,
Yes.
the hypothetical readoption of Christian values would be a reformation because it would be different. It would be changed.
Well, no, it depends. If it divorces itself from its original premise, it wouldn't be the same. You might reform.
That's what I'm saying. It would be
You
reformed.
might you reform the idea of religion, sure, but you wouldn't reform Christianity. Christianity, you're abandoning in that moment.
No, you can still be reforming it
I don't think so.
in the same way that Protestantism was related to the Catholicism of old. It would be reforming it, even though it's different. So if it was to be readopted, it would still be a
But I don't
form
think
of
it would
Christ-
be readopted.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying hypothetically, like relating to your idea
Yeah.
of it changing. I'm not saying the adoption of the old. It would need to be reformed in some way to fit it.
You think so?
That's what you're
I
saying.
think it would eat
Right.
the old, like it has in the past. And
I don't know
would
what you mean by
completely-
that.
Well, think
Like,
about how
you-
Christianity ate every religion that was in its path.
But that was
And
a
then they wiped
reformation
them
of
out. No.
paganism.
Yeah. No, it's not. I don't think so. That
It was
was a
taking elements of it.
Yeah, sure, but that's just naked utilitarianism, really. It's the manipulator style.
Naked utilitarianism.
Yeah, just sheer. You take what you find useful and just use it. That's what the Romans did.
That's what we're doing anyway. That's what we're trying to do right now when we're working out how to
You
solve
are.
this.
You are.
Maybe, yeah, sure.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily.
Okay.
I don't think you need to take everything on that was good in the bad old system, or you need to.
No, I just
keep
mean
the body
by,
alive. In
But
order
you're saying
to,
like, oh, that was naked utilitarianism, but literally by trying to decide which way we go, whichever way it is.
yeah,
would be
sure. No, but
that's
we're
just rationality.
No, but we're just idiots talking about stuff we don't really know anything about.
Right.
So I don't think anyone in their right mind would listen to what we say, anyways. So
No, that's not the point I'm making. I'm saying that
I get what you're saying.
Uh-huh.
But in order for that premise to work, someone would have to take seriously what we say.
But it's never
'Cause
going
we're
to
not-
happen
we're
if
not-
no one's discussing it.
What?
It's never going to happen if no one's discussing it. It's not. This isn't futile.
I'm not saying
It
it
starts
is.
with the individual, like we were saying earlier, right?
I'm not saying it isn't, but at the same time, in order for you to say that I'm utilitarian in my approach by saying we should adopt this or that and not take this, that would only work if someone actually took seriously what we said.
Yeah, but you are acting as utilitarian by trying to look at what
I'm not.
is.
I'm addressing the points that you're sending me.
Okay,
I don't know what I think anymore, to be honest.
I get you.
Meanings, like I said, have become irrelevant. Why are you so quiet?
I was very angry.
Yeah, so
Why are
that's
you
my
angry?
first piece.
Was it?
Why are you angry?
That's my first
This was that what
piece.
you were
Yeah.
I wasn't. I was saying Max is
Oh,
just don't have much to add to this particular topic. It's not my area of expertise. I've done
That's
little
not
reading
ours
into
either,
it.
to be fair.
We
Or not
both
mine
read
anyway.
into it a fair
I
bit
know,
of it.
but
not
I've
enough.
read-
Not
How
enough.
many hours do you think you've devoted to this topic? You've watched a
the
100
light.
video lecture on theology.
Still need. So we'll see how long it takes me to read that bloody Heidegger book.
I think everything I know about this field I've learned from you two, so
He actually makes an interesting case, Heidegger, about that being in the moment and stuff like that.
Is he? What tradition is he coming from? Is he?
Phenomenology.
what's that?
So it's the study of, as you call them, what did you say earlier? Not phenom. What was it? Phenomena.
Phenomena.
Phenomena. There you go. The study of phenomena
Yeah.
and how they relate to individual, I guess, responses, or how individual responses can cause certain phenomena. Yeah.
Well,
All interlinked in a network.
I
That
like how we
cause-
fit in
with
interlinked
incels
as well.
interlinked,
but it-
interlinked,
but it-
interlinked.